Today I'm going to be talking about relationships needing tenderness because avoidance leads to, like, tending to tenderness, because avoidance leads to obsessing and ruminating because we need to get to the bottom of it. If it's avoided, it's kind of like you've locked all the doors, but you know there's something circling the house. And you're going to be obsessed every second. Versus tending to the situation is perhaps looking outside, calling, is somebody out there, and if it's very dangerous, our mind might start to say, well, the cause of this is a threat. Somebody wants to hurt me. There is an animal. If I make a noise, they're going to come try to eat me. They're going to try to get me. And then we'll start to say, well, if that happens, then did I, write my will? I don't want to die. Maybe I could get a gun. Do I have a security camera? All this kind of talking, and somebody could come at me, while I'm taking out money out of the machine, and we avoid the person standing right behind us. But actually, so we need to tend to these thoughts, the relationships. So true tenderness. What does that mean? True tending to, true presence with tending. So first, I'll talk about the negative feedback loop of ruminating. I'm in a tapping group, and we have just a couple more weeks together, but I learned a lot this past week because I learned about how there's a stressor, and then we try to figure out the cause and the consequences, and we become attached. And so, for example, my father is a very difficult person for me, and I make a lot of efforts, and often I feel misunderstood. And it's so painful for me because I want him to see that I'm trying to share love from a place without attachment. But I still want him to see that I'm sharing love from a place without attachment, that want, and then kind of being treated like I'm abusive or evil or bad, these words, and it's like, why are you rejecting my love? I'm trying to share myself, and you judge my efforts. And I want to inspire you, and I want you to feel like, and the reason I want to do a lot of this is I think then you're going to be able to be present and share love. And, and then he texted me the card that you left for me, an inspirational card, because I knocked and he wasn't home. He ripped it up into little pieces. He thought a missionary left it. And I'm thinking, in the tradition we were raised in, there's missionaries who go out to bring inspiration to the world. So what would be wrong with a missionary? And suddenly I realized it's not personal. And I recognized I was ruminating and obsessing about how, he represents all men. If I get close, it'll repeat. I'm not honoring him, and I'm violating the 10 Commandments. He refuses to accept or understand me because I'm bad. He has low self-esteem. I have to build him up because he feels like he's not honorable. He doesn't want to be honored. And so we tapped on it, and first I felt doomed. And that's a feeling of like, it's the end, right? I'm going to die, you're going to die, we're all going to die. It's bad. It's so bad, inevitable. Under the doom, I felt through those emotions, and we avoid that. I tended to the doom. I tended to the sense that I felt that I would be not okay. And under it, I felt the sense, I feel misunderstood. I feel so misunderstood. And as I went into that, I was able to get some closure, and I realized that there's permission to release this all, come back later, and when I'm ready. And it's okay to be kind to myself and acknowledge I did enough by tending to this. So I'm altering my relationship with myself, really, and how much power I allow somebody to have over me or something. I feel the fear. The fear is that I'm not going to be okay, but I am elevating the sense of, what am I fearing? I'm fearing the one in charge of everything. I'm fearing the creator of all life, not the one who could rip up a card and I'm still okay. I'm here. I'm not the card. I'm not even the effort it took. I mean, maybe it took me, if we want to say a total of an hour, mentally and physically and all of the parts, an hour of my life, which, how do I know that I won't have many more better hours? Like, let me look at this relative to the bigger picture. Relationships take a lot of work. My father for sure has put in an hour, so looking at it like that, even though he neglected and abused, and, we could use all these words to describe our parents, but actually he put in more than an hour, his best of his ability. The same way I put in, and if he could communicate better, I'm sure he would. If he could share love, I'm sure he would. If he would know the beauty of having children. And, I spoke to somebody today, she doesn't have children and it hurts. And this person has children and that can't see them, can't love them, can't be patient. So anyway, What about relationships needs tending to? So I came up with a few things in myself, and I hope this is, helpful. And it's lashing out. We have to pick up the pieces of the self. So acknowledging that we will lash out sometimes, but how do we address the situation after we force the other person to pick up the pieces of their self? And how do we recognize that when we have deceptions or violations, when we use force or lies, we damage the faith and the trust muscles. They leave scars or sores. How do we repair? Is tending to. It's a nursing. It's like a nurse, and we have to inspire faith that the other could, that we're not here to do that. This is the biggest issue with my father, is that after these events happen, he doesn't tend to the relationship. And this is what hurts me. Not so much feeling misunderstood, but it's like, sure, you misunderstood, but afterward, do you really still believe that I want to cause harm? That damages the faith I have in your ability to be innocent, because you can't give innocence to anyone else. Another is to renew our face and see the other's renewed face. After a difficult day, a lot of things went wrong. You didn't get a nap. You didn't get to eat. You didn't sleep well. You didn't even drink coffee. You don't like caffeine. And, there's that willingness to be transformed. I don't know what I'm doing comes even by, I'm just going to go to bed tonight. I'm not going to be able to do anything more. And I wake up, it's going to be new. And to even let that come and meet us all day, every day, at any time we need it. And in a broader way, the willingness to be transformed by situations, to say, wow, I don't know everything. I can grow, I can learn, I can become new, I can learn more about who I am and the world in such a way that I also adapt and get skills. And this is a really hard one for me, is mourning previous versions of myself that I was attached to, and which avoid being transformed and growing and rising to the occasion. And I'll find myself now controlling environments in these situations. If I am not if I avoid the part of me that I want to be, which, like, I think of the man that I lost my virginity to is, no, that's not true. How would I say this? The man that was my first real boyfriend, the man that I spent, a long time cuddling with before I had sex, the man that I didn't want to have sex with until I knew for sure he loved me, the man that, everyone thought I was going to marry, but it wasn't right for me at the time. Actually, what I ended up doing and what he ended up doing was we became very controlling because we couldn't let go of the version of ourselves before we met each other. And even after, I couldn't even access the one I was before. They're gone, but sometimes we have to access this in order to be comforted that there's motion in process to relate to. In order to see change, I might control the environment. I want to change the environment because I don't want to change, and I'm not seeing change in myself. And it's kind of like the idea that there's always, everything has a balance. If I'm not changing, life isn't changing for me. So, in becoming a process I can relate to, is I'm changing. I don't even want life to change so much. I'm changing by life. Life's forming me. And by life, I could say the Creator. The Creator is giving me challenges and abilities at every moment to become, to becoming who I am, to becoming into. And finally, grasping others' suffering, yet still wanting to stay in the world, needs a container. It needs a bandage. In other words, if I have a wound and then I see others who are wounded, I need to have a bandage because their wounds could be infected and cannot touch my wound. So in some way, there needs to be a container. I'm willing to meet people who are addicts in a group setting who identify as addicts, where we talk about our addictions and our toxic behaviors. But I don't want to talk about that always in a situation where I'm looking for inspiration. I don't want to be grasping your suffering and being present for you when, you're in ruminating thoughts, when I myself am currently dealing with a big unpleasant thing. So it's saying, yes, by serving others, the willingness to grasp others' suffering, we also need containers, like we would say, a bandage, an edge. And that's how we can tend to ourselves and to others. When we tend to the wounds is when we know that they're sensitive. And it's not for airing out in public all the time. There are moments in busy situations where just being there is enough. I could be overwhelmed. There's 3 different groups of people having barbecues and having music, and that's enough. It's not the time to necessarily go in very deep to a place that would air out some dirty laundry kind of idea. And finally, I have a prompt. It's called, Am I True? And so I wrote, as I've committed, to be truly who I am. And this is, a way to not be obsessing, ruminating. It's the truth. The truth is, if I am the truth, I don't need to worry about the potential distressors and their consequences and their causes. And if I'm tending to this relationship with true tenderness, true tending, there is the container, there is the bandage. I know my limits. I know what I could and can't do. So here I go. To not white lie or exaggerate, not to mislead or sound more evolved, to keep my word to myself, to honor these commitments I make to and any commitments I make to my maker. Not pretending I don't know in order to accommodate. It's hard on people-pleasing tendency. To cry whenever I need to. And that's also hard. I was made fun of for crying as a child by my father. My bottom lip would start to shake and I would start to and I would go into crying, and I've repressed it a lot of my life, and my body has to cry for me sometimes. Like, parts have to hurt, and I just have to surrender and cry out of that place. Continuing, not getting lost in delusion or desire. When I say lost, is not thinking that's the whole picture. Not getting over-attached to one version of myself, and I mentioned that, basically, to begin with, not saying this is the best way for me to be, this version. Being a proud Jew, big one for me. Taking a lighthearted approach, trusting my own 2 feet and the foundation. Sing with the full voice I have. Dance with my full body I have. And, not avoiding crackles or wobbles. And finally, sharing my affections without holding back. And I don't mean only touch, but, it's so painful to feel cold and dark and lonely and cut off. And so sharing my affections is a way of doing that for myself, because these people that I share my affections to, whether it's a hug, a kind word, a little gift, it shows that you affect, but also like my affection, my warmth toward you from far away, even sending a letter in the mail. It does a lot for me too. And I do it because of how I feel when I feel a lack of affection from around me. And so I wish you to tend to the relationships with true tenderness, and to not be in avoidance, because that leads to obsession. Be well.